There comes a moment in every person's life when everything feels like it has collapsed. Maybe you've lost someone, failed at something important, ruined a relationship, wasted time, or simply drifted so far from who you wanted to be that you barely recognize yourself anymore. And when you reach that point, the biggest question rises: how do you rebuild? How do you start again when you feel like all the pieces are scattered and you don't even know where to pick up? The Stoics understood this deeply. They lived through wars, exile, betrayal, financial collapse, and devastating personal loss. But instead of breaking, they developed a method, a way of thinking and acting that allowed them to rebuild themselves stronger than before. And that method still works today, especially in moments when your life feels like it's in ruins. The first part of rebuilding is acceptance. Not the weak kind of acceptance where you give up, but the sharp, clear recognition of what has already happened. The Stoics taught that you cannot rebuild what you refuse to look at. Most people try to start over while still running from their past. They try to build new habits while still denying the truth of their mistakes. But the Stoic approach is different. Face everything. Name what happened. Acknowledge your role. Acknowledge the things you couldn't control. And then breathe. You don't rebuild in panic. You rebuild in clarity. Once you can see the situation honestly, the next step is to strip away everything unnecessary. Rebuilding is not adding more to your life. It's subtracting. It's removing the noise, the distractions, the obligations that drain you, and the people who pull you backward. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we often burden ourselves with more than life already gives us. Rebuilding begins when you stop carrying what isn't yours. When your life feels broken, simplify it. Focus on only what matters next. Then comes responsibility. The Stoics believed that your life changes the moment you take full ownership of your actions and reactions. Not blame, not self-hatred, just ownership. This happened. This is where I am. This is what I can control moving forward. Responsibility is empowering because it gives you something to work with. If you caused part of the damage, you can correct your course. If life simply hit you with something unexpected, you can still choose your response. Rebuilding starts with the decision to stop waiting for someone else to fix things. After responsibility comes discipline. Not the extreme, punishing discipline most people imagine, but steady, consistent effort. Stoics rebuilt their lives by mastering daily action, not by making dramatic promises. Seneca said that life is rebuilt one choice at a time. If you feel lost, don't try to reinvent everything in a week. Start small. Clean one part of your environment. Repair one habit. Honor one promise to yourself. Every small action is a brick. Over time, those bricks form a foundation. Another key part of the Stoic method is detaching from outcomes. When you're trying to rebuild, it's easy to obsess over how fast you should recover, how far you should be by now, or how your life should look compared to others. But the Stoics warned that obsession with results destroys progress. You rebuild by focusing on the process, the present moment, and the next actionable step. When you stop demanding that the future arrive instantly, you free yourself to do the work that actually shapes it. Then there's the emotional reset. Rebuilding your life isn't only logical, it's deeply emotional. Stoicism doesn't tell you to suppress your emotions, it teaches you to guide them. Sit with your disappointment, sit with your frustration, sit with the regret you carry, but don't become trapped by it. The Stoics believed emotions are teachers, not dictators. What is this feeling showing you? What is it pointing to? What needs to be healed, changed, or released? Emotional clarity gives you momentum because you're no longer running from inner storms.
Once you stabilize your emotions, the Stoic method asks you to reconnect with purpose. When your life feels broken, purpose can disappear, leaving you numb or directionless. But rebuilding requires a why. The Stoics didn't chase pleasure or approval, they chased virtue, the character of the person they wanted to become. Begin by asking yourself, who do I want to be from this point forward? What principles do I want my actions to reflect? When you rebuild from purpose instead of desperation, the structure holds. The next part is resilience, the acceptance that rebuilding won't be smooth. There will be setbacks, moments where you slip, days when you doubt the entire process. The Stoics considered setbacks normal. Marcus Aurelius would actually remind himself every morning that people would challenge him, life would frustrate him, and progress would be imperfect. But he also reminded himself that he had the strength to handle it. Rebuilding requires that same mindset. Progress isn't linear, and failure isn't final. The Stoic method also includes gratitude, not the superficial, forced positivity most people talk about, but grounded appreciation. Gratitude for the opportunity to start again. Gratitude for the lessons that came from the collapse. Gratitude for the fact that you are still here, still breathing, still capable of shaping what comes next. Gratitude shifts your mindset from loss to capability. It gives you energy to continue. Finally, the Stoics believed that rebuilding your life transforms you, not just your circumstances. When you go through something difficult and rise from it, you become more rooted, more stable, more self-aware. You stop being shaken by every setback. You stop tying your identity to success or failure. You become someone who can handle life instead of being overwhelmed by it. Rebuilding your life is not about going back to who you were. It's about rising as someone wiser, stronger, calmer, and more intentional. Someone who understands what matters. Someone who knows how to navigate storms. Someone who refuses to give up on themselves. If your life feels broken right now, remember that the Stoics saw every collapse as a starting point, not the end, but the beginning. You don't have to rebuild everything overnight. You just have to begin. One step, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. And slowly, without realizing it, you create a version of yourself that your past self would barely believe. Rebuilding is not a miracle. It is a method, and you are capable of following it.